Welcome to the Chatting Chakras podcast, where we get our inspiration from chakras, yoga, art, and sacred space of friends. Here's your hosts ready to rock the rainbow with you, Christina Alexa, Lonnie Voivod, and Kate LeMay.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Came through. What can I say?
I love it. Good day, everybody. We're just going to start with that start today.
Good day.
Think Lonnie crushed the intro. Good morning, good afternoon.
Oh, that's
whatever. No, meaning in a positive way, though. Welcome to Chatting Chakras, episode about thought pop.
Thought pop.
Thought pop.
Oh yeah.
We're going all out of order today. So, how would we like to introduce ourselves today, ladies?
Kate, you start. What do you?
Okay, Kate LeMay here. This week, I am waiting to respond.
Human design.
I'm into human design this week, people.
You're a human designer.
That's it. That's what I'm doing this week.
What about you, Lonnie?
Well, I'm Lonnie Voivod. I was just told I'm one water, and that means something, but I'm not going to talk about what it means. It's about the elements. So that's exciting. And I did a event yesterday for my town's library about where I got to share the essence of 10 phenomenal goddesses for International Women's Day. So I feel like I still have those. So I'm a communicator of goddess energy. How about that? At least I'm a translator or someone who likes to play with goddesses that scare me and delight me at the same time. Kali actually made my heart like open. I was like, oh, she still scares me. That's it.
So I want to go off on the Kali thing. I'm Christina Alexa, and I'm a 5 soil. I'm an earth element today. So yeah. But I think the thing about Kali, Lonnie, is if you think about Kali as you're not afraid of self-growth and transformation. And if you think of Kali, this is how I think of Kali. I don't know if this is how anyone else thinks of Kali, but the goddess of destruction, right? And transformation. She looks like a shadow goddess or like a dark goddess, but really it's because in order to evolve and change, we have to break down who we are not. And that is a disassembly process that can be really uncomfortable, but it's a necessary death, right? Of who we are not. And I think Kali brings her magic in and slays that part of us. We slay that part of us. We invoke that destruction force so that we can eliminate those obstacles. You know, last week we talked about, I am the obstacle and I am the way. Kali says, oh, I am the obstacle. Okay, I'm going to remove those obstacles. So maybe that's a little bit less scary. I don't know.
Yes, I probably, I honor and celebrate her. She, the real emotion is exhilarating. She's exhilarating, but she makes me like not be able to talk. She's just so fierce and feral. She's so fierce and feral and sweeps in, and she's misunderstood and has no rules, and that's where her strength is. And she's kind of outside the box. So that's one of the gals that now I feel like I got acquainted with these different energies yesterday. It was really fun, and so they're still clearly did not mean to bring them up, especially right away in this conversation. So this is funny. Whew, which is
unapologetically wild.
When we talk about what we're doing today with Thought Pop, where I listen rather than express everything that comes to mind. So I am a great example today on, where Thought Pop might come into play in our lives, where we don't have to express everything that comes out.
I always have the urge when I hold these cards up to kind of peek my head around the side.
Me too. I love it.
Anyway, do you want me to read today, ladies, or do you want to read, Kate?
I'd love you to read.
Thought Pop. This is a painting of a thought rising up and popping. There is grace in observing thought without speaking it. So a thought rising up and popping, and there's grace in observing observing thought without speaking it. Listen first. Practice watching your thoughts rise up and pop. Watch how you feel. Enjoy the sensations of observing and witnessing. So I'll say that again. Enjoy the sensations of observing and witnessing. And the mantra is, I listen. It's a good one after going through the third eye chakra last week to follow it up with, I listen.
Well, we can't all listen, ladies. Kate.
So this is the Vishuddha chakra, throat chakra, a masculine principle. The color is blue. So we have a little blue on today. And the throat chakra is not just right here in the throat, it's also the lower jaw, which is interesting because speak, right? And this is just coming to mind. The jaw, the mouth is also the beginning of our digestion. And so, it's interesting to contemplate in the throat chakra, those two places of knowing when to speak up and when to stay silent, right? Which is exactly what Thought Pop is talking about. Just witness the thought. Don't necessarily act on it or react to it or speak it or anything, just observe. So there's a place for listening and digesting what we're observing. So that's my first hit on Vishuddha chakra, masculine principle, communicator, truth, right? Becoming clear in our truth.
Yeah, go ahead, Lonnie.
Oh, just the word discernment. It just, seems to link well, being aware of what you're yapping about and maybe not let everything out. Go ahead, Kate.
No, this is my most challenging card for Kate LeMay. Like when I even created it, I use it really intentionally more than any other card. It has an intention. Like if I know I'm going into a place where on that day I really want to focus on listening, I will garner up this necklace, this painting, and I will approach what I'm doing with extra consciousness around listening, because I feel like I sort of have a disorder when it comes to this issue. Although I'm going to get better, because since I just realized what I am in my human design world, I'm done talking about stuff. I'm just you don't have to fix it. If they ask for your opinion, you will then say what you want to say. You can respond, so
Can you qualify that a little bit? What are you in human design?
Yeah. So, I am on I was wondering if this is, of course, it's like Lonnie just said, I wasn't meaning to talk about the goddesses. I just, but I guess this is what part of this is about, right? By recording something weekly, we do get to bring in what's going on in our world into the correlation with the card. Yes, Lonnie.
And I just like that as you're about to say this, when you peekabooed back, your shirt says, "This is who I am." And it was a beautiful timing. You're like, and I'm just not going to do it. This is who I am. So go.
This is a insurance shirt. I love it. This is our camp insurer. It's called Redwoods. And I just love that they made this shirt for staff and camping around and being an insurance company. Anyways.
I thought you meant your own insurance. This is my insurance that people don't mess with me because this is who
on days when I wear this shirt. Yeah. It's today I'm laughing. This is definitely not my dressed up outfits. However, I appear to not care anymore about any meetings I'm in, that I just am wearing the clothes I want to wear. So human-centered design I fell into this week. And I know some people that are listening to this may know already about this stuff. I knew nothing really. This is my chart. And it's called a manifesting generator. And my strategy is responding, and my authority is listening to my gut. And responding involves the idea of waiting. So it is not I'm not an initiator of ideas, which that is hugely different than the way I have been functioning. And the way I know when I'm in good, harmonious living my design is that I'm satisfied. And the way I know that I am not is that I am frustrated. And so I just kind of feel like psyched. And then I thought to myself, what if this is like a system that someone invented to like shut up all the generators? But then I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to play. I'm going to play the game. I'm making an experiment. This is my new thing, to just feel how it feels to approach my life with this strategy and authority. And my authority comes from my sacral gut, which is orange, which Lonnie knows. I always make jokes that I say like my orange is dried up because I don't have a lot of like joy and pleasure, even though I do, but like I make jokes all the time that orange is dried up. So the way I am supposed to not make decisions or listen with my head, but rather with my sacral chakra area. And the sounds it makes is like, you know, like if you ask me a question, I would answer with more like sacral sounds versus yes or no. So this, I'm like psyched because so far in my one day of experimenting, I've been less frustrated because I feel like I'm not in charge. I don't have to be in charge. I feel like I'm on a journey of a magical boat, and the wind, I catch the sails as needed. I hope this lasts more than one day. That's all I got to say.
Well, you're already on day 2.
Day 2.
It's already happening. It's already happening. You've made it to day
awesome.
2. Where is your button? I will share a little fun fact about Kate LeMay. Sometimes, do you have that? Of course I have. When she starts a new program, she's got a day 1 button, a day just so she remembers like that is how she begins new commitments to herself. She wears her day 1. You can't wear that today because you are on day 2. This is who I am.
Do you have a day 2 button?
No, I have said I'm going to make a day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7 button, but I have never actually needed it. Because once I get through day 1 of the commitment, traditionally I don't even need a day 2 button because I've already committed. But committing to day 1 is the hardest commitment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how that has to go with thought pop, but.
Well, when you're talking about sacral chakra stuff and how you said your orange is dried up, sometimes you say that occasionally when that happens for you, it reminds me to talk about a little bit the practical application of looking at the energy centers, and when we know when we're draining energy and when we have excess energy, when we're depleted, when we're in balance. And in the sacral chakra, it's so easy for us to drain our energy. If we're doing too much, too busy, if we're caretaking others, if we're putting everyone else's needs ahead of our own and forgetting about our own needs and to feel what our own needs are, we start to override our pleasure and fulfillment center and all that stuff. So it's easy to feel it. And sometimes we can get drained and fatigued there and not feel creatively inspired. But in the throat chakra, what does it look like when we're draining energy? We can feel weak in the throat, like we don't have a voice. And I think that is a common affliction for human beings, not just women, but I would say definitely for women or any individual who has felt at all oppressed or repressed in their life, woman, man, different races, sexual orientations, everything. And so we can feel drained and that ties into third chakra, Manipura chakra, our power and will center, where we learn about self-value and advocacy so that we can use our voice. And that ties into root chakra, Muladhara or Muladhara chakra. Is it safe to use our voice? Is it safe to feel our truth and communicate that truth? So there's so much always in these places. It goes back to origin and to value. And value, by the way, is typically, it's oftentimes delivered to us in our early years through the male figure, right? Through the divine masculine or through the father figure. And if we didn't get that there, hopefully there's some other masculine figure or the male side of mom who delivers that sense of value. And if we don't have it, it's okay because we can build it, right? We can build that place. That might be part of our core journey. What does it look like when we are in excess in the throat chakra? It could look like a lot of excessive talking or spilling over without being connected to our feeling center. a nervousness. And when we're in balance in Vishuddha chakra, that's one manifestation of excess. There are others. But when we're in balance, it can feel like that level of discernment, which is the word that Lonnie used around knowing when to speak up and stay silent, but always in touch, or often in touch with the truth of ourselves, right? So knowing when to communicate and what inwardly and when to communicate outwardly. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Oh, how did you know that? How did you do that? It's a long journey to learn how to trust your voice, to trust, because I feel like in this conversation, thought pop is discernment and that balance, because I think, well, in my own journey, teaching yoga and going through Reiki trainings and whatnot, we are taught, when things arise and they feel like they don't need to make sense. You don't, when you start working with your intuitive hits, and you're guided to release caring about why, when you start trusting yourself more about things that you need to say, that deepening of connection with your understanding of the impact of your communication skills. And I'm saying specifically through yoga or Reiki, because sometimes what you're inspired to say doesn't make sense to you. Learning this part of thought pop has been magnificent and fascinating for me. And what I am trying to say is that there is a balance between figuring out what's real, the excess noise that doesn't need to happen, and the real sensations of, you should say this, and then hearing my own brain say, why, that makes no sense. And now I've had so many beautiful occasions where I'll say something that surprises me as it comes out of my mouth. And later, either, in person, when we used to meet with people in person, or in Facebook messages, thank you for saying that specific thing, because this is how it applied to me and affected my day today. So I do think thought pop is a beautiful, in this dance of awareness and personal growth and evolution. I think of it like this balance beam of figuring out what not to say, figuring out how to trust all the other sensations in the body and how it connects with your vocal cords as the portal to sharing with others. I don't have a pretty bow to put on the end of that thought. So Christina, if you could just...
You just did.
Channeling. Yeah, it's beautiful, but you're talking about channeling. And when we get out of our own way and we intuitively receive the guidance, we don't personalize it. You're talking about that beautiful discernment distinguishing between our personality self, our preferences, our ego, all of that, and the higher self or the higher guidance that comes through, and we don't question that guidance. And then taking that a step further, and so we may speak what comes through as we're teaching or we're working with people in a healing session or whatever, without doubting it or questioning it. And while on the basis of ahimsa, which is non-harming. And then taking that to the next level of refinement, which is hearing also in that guidance, should this come through or should this not come through? I think that is that's in there. That's part of what you're saying, right?
Yes. And as we practice these modalities through the framework of the chakra system, it is such an interesting way of self-discovery and also discovery of how we interact with the energies and the humans of the world, because you would think that thought pop is about figuring out, should I say that it's something that happens up in the brain, but it is a full body experience when you start rocking and rolling with this idea. It is checking in, and at first maybe the check-ins are a little clunky, but as you practice this muscle of thought popping, it can become as close to automated as you get once you figure out your own system of energetic awareness. it's a neat little ride to tune into.
I just want to point out before we go to Kate, Kate, that sometimes we look at the writing and say what jumps out at us, and if you have one of these at home, the kit, a card set, and the book, that's a fun way one of the many fun ways to play with this is, what words on the page jump out at you, because that is the piece of the message that is most relevant, I think, in the moment. And the word that jumps out at me out of this whole page the most, and they're close seconds and thirds here, but is grace. There's grace in observing thought without speaking it. And I do believe that inherent in that grace is everything you're talking about, Lonnie. So I had to go back and find that word because you're bringing that up for me.
I love that. I'm tuned in right now to just enjoy the sensations that, because it is challenging. Like Kate, you said, this is your, a beloved tool you use maybe most often because you are so front facing with so many people on a daily and weekly basis. Like when you get to the place where even in your own organizations that you're dealing with, if there's, whether you or other people, too much communication happening, not enough. And that dance is a constant thing. Like you said, you have 7, 12, 14 meetings a day. You always have to be in tune with how you're hearing and receiving, and it has to be on a fast schedule. When you spend some time in this awareness space, that invitation to enjoy the sensation, it does eventually happen, but there may be a learning curve. How about that? And the learning curve, it is what it is, I guess, in every single thing in life. Yes.
Well, I am on day 2. I feel like these two ideas of full body listening and sensation and grace are the home run on this card. Like, I have actually never felt this card the way we talked about it just now, because it's always felt like a cap it card. Like, oh, you have all this energy. Don't let it out. But where is that energy coming from? What is generating the energy in me that feels like it needs to come out of the mouth? That with urgency, that it can't handle just enjoying the body sensations, right? And I think, well, for me, this is how I would say it. So honestly, if my shift becomes not about, oh, I'm having all this energy that I want to release out of my mouth, and now I have to tame it. Instead, it becomes just a gift to listen to others without any urgency to respond unless asked. And at that point, it's like, oh, like literally I was watching how I was reacting to the way you were both talking. And I was like, like my, it's not my yeses, right? Like where I was just like, amen, which is my yes, that's my yes. Amen, that's my amen. And it doesn't have to come out of my mouth. It was such an enjoyable sensation. So day 2, I'm feeling really excited that this is going to change my life. Because mostly I sit in meetings thinking I'm supposed to change things. But that isn't my gift.
Well, no. Your gift is that your modality, the way you've been doing it has not been aligned. So, when the irony is you become perceived by the world. You're perceived by the world as a greater, more effective leader and communicator, the more you learn to actively listen. And then when we were talking about this last night, Kate, that it is that saying, when you want someone to listen, whisper. People lean in when you're not. The less you talk, it looks like you're super smart, you're incredibly wise, and people will eventually come and be like, well, what do you think? And they will draw it out. And that in interpersonal dynamics, that is when humans are most, when they have to ask, there's something that happens in the chemistry of the brain that they're already in an affirmative state to receive. But when they're home, they've got their energetic arms crossed, right? But when they ask, now it's their responsibility. They realize they're the ones who invited the conversation in that direction. So they are set up for your success, which is a game changer when I think of your years of like, why aren't people listening? The irony, like, it's so beautiful. I will also say I do love that in life, in this, because we are meeting on a weekly basis in this, I see it with you, and I know it happens with everyone. We create the art, we create things in our lives that are literally there to save us from ourselves, right? And I love that, these things, these pages, the paintings were born so long ago, and they've been revisited so often, and yet I bet you never even noticed. Enjoy the sensations. Or you're like, yeah.
Or alternate, I couldn't enjoy that. I was like,
it does not feel good.
Like opposite feeling, like this is the worst sensation I've ever had, that I have to not speak. Except now it's like the most freeing sensation on the planet to think of it. It's just like a flip-flop. Like, it's like,
isn't that balance? That balance is extraordinary, and we're on that manifestation current. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate. I just am struck by the continued theme of balance in our world. It's just finding the balance. And I totally agree with what Lonnie said. And I love your facial expressions. If people are listening to this, instead of seeing it on a screen, you just missed like a whole ride with Kate's facial expressions, which were awesome. But when Lonnie pointed out that, no, this is who you are. And this is important for all of us, to trust our inherent nature. It's just the approach, and the approach of creating that balance through listening is profound. I'm really curious where you go with that from here. She whispered.
No, because Kate, imagine, for the years of saying your orange has been depleted, imagine all that energy just feeding that. And like you said, you have your sound of yum, 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 yum. It's not yum, but it is yum.
This is gonna be big. Yeah. Watch out, people. Coming. Quiet Kate.
Quiet
Who'd
Kate.
have thought? Who'd have thought?
And isn't it interesting we were just reading about the sixth metal energy is the quiet place, right? Like, not talkative. Although, Kate, you have to remain inherently talkative.
Well,
what comes
when
for
I was
you is
younger,
amazing.
I was extremely quiet when I was younger. Like, I didn't
Me
speak
too.
at all. Like, in my report card, it was like the word painfully shy.
Oh,
So, I think like there's comfort. There's our comfort places, right? And as we grow and we try on new things and we come in the world in new ways, and then we react to our ways, like, oh, I'm embarrassed about that part of myself, or that part was really hard for me. Like, I like these like things like, and I'm a 6 metal, as Christina just referred to. And, these things that we learn about ourselves, where we then can reflect upon, do we agree or not agree that this is our natural tendency or not? So that if there's clues on our beingness that can aid in this journey, where things approach our lives in where, like, for me, I was saying to Lonnie last night, it's amazing how much I didn't realize how, I am frustrated a lot. Like, if you were to actually zoom out on a video camera of my day to day, right? I'm not frustrated when I'm alone. Well, maybe I am sometimes, but like in the meetings that I'm in, like the amount of energy that I'll finish a meeting with in such frustration, when like that isn't the feeling I want to have all the time. Like, it's awful. Like, I don't feel like I'm enjoying the journey, or, you know, like all these things that I say that are my taglines of living in life, and like how I understand so deeply what it looks like when I'm in alignment, and how I absolutely know and feel when it is not. And yet maybe the key to all this was like being able to check in with my gut and like listen to myself. Like, what if that's part of thought pot? I listen to my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, there's a game changer, rather than, because we think when the mantra I listen is associated to just us in meetings or life, listening to everyone else. But yeah, I listen to the aligned places in my soul.
The other piece of that is in that listening, if a thought arises, it could be any thought, right? It could be a guided, intuitive insight. It could be a self-deprecating thought. It could be any thought that arises. In the listening, we're not reacting to it in the same way that we always have. And that's part of what you're talking about, Kate. You're totally transforming this place, which is a great, you know, these real life examples of how to work with these concepts, hopefully are helpful to people, right? The antidotes, but, you know, to help us sort of ground the practical application of conceptual ideas. But the thought, this is how we change our patterning. You know, we observe a thought, it arises, we allow it to dissolve on its own without reacting to it in the same old way we always have, which might be, you know, to, if I know I'm always talking about the wound, and that's because I'm so invested in healing these places. And I do believe that, you know, we have to be warriors to face those places. And it's because they're surrounded by joy, because the joy is there in the wake of the release. But when we have a self-deprecating thought come up, we might unconsciously always react to it in the same way. Like, I'm bad in this way, or I don't deserve this, or, you know, I can't ever do that because I've never been able to do that, et cetera. Whatever the negative thought form is, or even in a yoga class on the mat, I'll never be able to touch my toes, or my belly fat is always in the way when I'm trying to do this twist, and I hate that part of my body. Whatever the negative thought form is, we react to it by, if we believe in it, we cringe inside and we immediately go into an action, a reaction, and that perpetuates it. It's the perpetuation of the patterning. So that thought form got unconsciously validated and said, oh yeah, that worked. I think I'll come back again, right? As opposed to, I'm just going to listen and observe and allow a thought to arise and dissolve on its own and feel the feelings associated with it without committing to an action around that thought, whether it's to suppress it or express it, et cetera. It's that tapas work again. But I think that is a really useful, I mean, the power in this idea or this practice to actually change the way we think is, this is the step before the affirmation. Oh, I have a negative thought, I'll replace it with a positive thought. That doesn't always work if we don't stop and feel the thought and feel what we feel when the thought arises and allow it to dissolve on its own. That's my personal journey, and that's my personal belief. This is the distilled poetic refinement of a practice. That's what I think. I'm sorry, I'm like all wrapped up in my blanket here. It's cold downstairs in my studio.
Kate,
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask Kate if she agrees with that, but go ahead, Lenny.
Oh, I just want to say that I observed you. I feel like you have a example of your own success with Thought Pop. And when you were in Florida for you had started your 3-week journey into, you know, toward fasting. So just the journey was, you know, it had to do with nutrition and awareness, and one meal a day down to just shakes, down to water, for, you made it to 6 days. So, but because I had the, you know, pleasure of talking to you most of those days. And some of them were with you, Christina, like when you showed up, I did observe you become like, I think, a master at thought popping because it was a Kate I had never seen before. The less I associated with fuel, but it could also be presence and relaxation because you're in a vacation that you haven't been for, to that level. So I want every day you would, your energy would get more brought into the body, I think, into the spirit. You were not inspired to blast things out. You were receiving and listening more, but you were also, your presence was not just more grounded, but and I don't want to, the word magnificent is coming to mind, but you are magnificent always. But it was more noticeable. Like it did feel like all these pieces that have been kind of scattered energetically finally had a place to settle home. And I didn't really realize the extent of that until this conversation. But just if you need a reference point to where I think you were thought popping before you understood your human design archetypes, that you did live in that sensation and that presence and that reality, at least for my observing and experiencing you. Like the quieter you came, the more I watched you come into yourself, I think.
Yeah, and I think just with Christina's thought at the beginning around digestion starting here, right? And like food, the intaking and the energy that it takes to break down that absorption and digest our world to where there was no food going in my body. So the digestion was now strictly energetic. It was, I actually do think it was so much occurred, actually, you said at the beginning that we break down who we are not, Christina. You say that a lot, and I really, really love it. And I think in some ways that time of refinement where it was nothing about food, and actually like asterisk, there's like 75 chapters on like food and human design that I cannot even wait to understand because I am so fascinated with this area in my own world. But I think when you remove the sensation of eating and you remove the sensation of your body having to use its energy for digestion of food, then you have so much more energy to do these other components of digestion that, thank God you were there to talk to me, Lonnie, because quite on the edge many times of that week, I was like, and this will be the last moment I can commit to this vision. And all it took was you would plant like one seed that I could keep going and I would make it to the next day, and I think there's so much I could there's a lot of judgment. I'm sure a lot of people, there's not a lot of people listening to this podcast for now, but if somebody were to listen to this in the future and judge, oh my God, why would you do that to yourself? 6 days of water. But like, it was an experiment. And that's what I love is these ideas of like, what does this do? What does this do to the energy? What does this do to the mind? What does this do to the body? So thanks for being a witness during that time, Lonnie. I wished I had either video journaled or journaled at all during that time because so much, I was so just present. I had nothing else. So I'll do it again though. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll do that again. Like that was just because now once you do it once, sort of like YTT 200, I feel like when you start your next round, you go in with it a little different because you have some knowing that you didn't have in the first time. And, I just think there's so much to be learned, I think, around that stuff.
Yeah, you create an austere, a beautiful, rich and austere are not, they seem like they're contrary terms, but a rich and austere environment to experience yourself.
Yeah.
And sattvic, because you're not rajasic, you're not going into all this active energy and busy energy inside of your own physiology. you're allowing your body to purify and become, calm. It's beautiful. I just want to speak to that place of, because I think we talk about it directly and then we dart around it. The Vishuddha chakra being, I love this piece that we're focused on with thought pop, but the body of the Vishuddha chakra, our voice and our truth. And because I do think that for some of us, we've talked about it before, even in these podcasts, but the finding our truth can be elusive. Even on the level of thought, how do you know if a thought is a thought from your mind or your ego personality, or if a thought is insight? We've talked about that in third eye. How do you know if your truth of yourself is really just a preference motivated by, filling a hole in ourselves, or if it's an actual piece of our authentic nature? And I do think that takes, to go back to this sort of bedrock, or this foundation rock piece that Lonnie brought in. I do think it takes time and discernment. And Kate, what came through when you wrote this, enjoy the sensations of observing and witnessing. I do think if we start here with this thought pop notion and practice of observing, witnessing, and enjoying and getting curious about the process, we will arrive at that level of discernment and our truth will be revealed. Satya is the 8 limbs of yoga. The Yamas and Niyamas are the first 2 limbs. And asana practice is not until we get down the pike a ways. And so the physical yoga practice. So they're like the 10 commandments of yoga, and then the Yamas Niyamas being the second limb of yoga. There are 5 Yamas and 5 Niyamas, and Satya is truth. And that is an observance. So there's a reason there's 5 Yamas and 5 Niyamas. And, we go through Ahimsa, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Satya. It's not Niyama. We go through observing ourselves and being non-harming, and finding our truth, and being non-stealing, and going through moderation, and then going through non-possessiveness, and blah, blah, blah. Saucha, Santosha. So Saucha is the first Niyama. Sometimes I mess those up. So it's a Yama, but there's a reason why this is an essential observance in an ancient teaching. And that we could spend a lifetime just taking the time to observe what our inherent truths are in ourselves, just like, ancient scholars of the earth, element realm, spent time just observing nature for a really long time before they determined, oh, this is how this works in Eastern medicine or Oriental medicine or macrobiotics or Ayurveda, all those places. We have to observe for a long time before we understand how things work. So I just wanted to one more time highlight that place of the power of that and the patience required, because we're not going to arrive at it immediately. And in order to highlight that, in order to point out again that thought pop can be a practice. That's going to be part of my new practice. Thought pop as a practice rather than, that leads to that truth. Would you agree, Kate, that is part of it? It's there.
Yes, 100%. I just love that. I love what you brought in, the clarity of that point tied to this idea. Would you have any other advice around that knowing our truth idea? So it's interesting as I'm now focusing on my mm-hms and not my yes nos, that it's a very, I can feel it creating vibration in me. And that it origins though from the sacral area, like it origins from my pleasure or, a feeling center, right? And I think that that form that you talk about with truth comes a lot of correspondence with trust. Like, can you trust what you are feeling as a truth?
And this just goes back to that wound work again. Is it safe to acknowledge? Is it safe to trust our truth? And if we learn, and that goes to root chakra. So if we find safety in trusting our truth, then we build value in third chakra. And so this is again where we just are always weaving. This happens organically. We don't even have to do this. We do this unconsciously too. This is, we grow despite ourselves, whether we want to be unconscious all the time or not. We will grow. We do grow. But to bring conscious awareness to it accelerates that process and makes it, well, brings in that level of grace, makes it more beautiful. But I can't remember your original question, Kate, except that I think it has something to do with, well, I'm not gonna reframe it. I don't know if that even touches your question because I can't remember the original question. I just went off on that tangent.
Yeah, it was just about trust and truth and how trust they go together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, root chakra is in there because if we were always told how we should be externally, truth is an internal discovery process, and it requires, back to thought pop, removing the voices in our heads that are not our own. So allowing them to arise, witnessing them, let them dissolve on their own, and so that we can determine who we really are behind the shoulds and shouldn'ts in our own mind. It's one thing to be exposed to a family environment or a culture, a community, a tribe that tries to tell you how to think, right? That's one thing that exists all the time, and it probably always will. There's always going to be somebody in our lives who thinks they know better, right? It's another thing to take ownership of those external voices and think that they are your own. So there's great freedom. You don't even have to figure out what your own truth is. There's great freedom in discerning, again, thank you, Lonnie, for the word, between what is derived from an external voice in our world and what is not. Because as soon as we know this voice comes from outside of ourselves, even if we agree with it and our truth corresponds with it, as soon as we determine that, oh, that's from this external voice or this external influence, then we have a boundary. We have a healthy boundary. We say, okay, but I'm here. Do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? Is that also my truth? Is that not my truth? That boundary is critical and then we build safety from the inside out with that boundary, right? It has nothing to do with where we came from.
Yeah, and that brings me back to that question, is truth then a sensation that we feel? And I mean, that's how I experience truth. I mean, an awareness, but it's not an intellectual endeavor. I mean, that can help. It just like our beautiful hemispheres. Yes, we are analytical. Left brain is a lovely tool to, for pro and con lists, for overthinking, for underthinking, for, comparing and contrasting and whatnot. But I think the truth that you're referring to is the stuff that that is built into our cells, and we do have to experience it from the inside out.
That's a full body listening. We get a full body registration when we tap into our truth. I'm so glad you brought up that refinement, Lonnie, because we get a full body registration when, oh yeah, we feel at home and like things are right in the world when we hit pieces of our truth, right? Parts of our truth and who we are, because our truth is who we are. That's what truth is. The truth is just like saying, oh, I'm recognizing a part of who I actually am. That's what truth is. In my experience anyway, it's not something aside from who we are. Truth is our authentic nature.
Yes.
Our authentic nature is truth. So when we touch it, it is going to be a full-bodied and authentic nature experience. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
saying that, Lonnie.
It feels good. This is good conversation. May I ask a question that I don't want to forget this, and regarding the art on this, Kate?
Yeah.
I always imagined this, and so now I get to find out and ask in my little Ask the Artist segment. I always imagine this as one of your most fun paintings to do. Is that true? I don't know.
I do love this one. Power, which is, I think, sorry, I'm like jumbling up my lineage here, but Power's also got this one in it, which is a splat. So I do love the splat, which is the top. See that?
I think I remember.
Is this the Power one?
That's Power Eye.
Power Eye.
There's another one that says Power, and it's got a yellow splat in it. Yeah, the splat's really fun. This is simple because I actually reversed the design on this one. Yeah, there it is. So the original one, the circles were filled in and the splat at the top was the way it is. But then I was like, oh, I like it better if the circles are clearish. So they're, really subtle, just water circles. And then I like put a little line in. Oh, I miss painting.
Can you talk a little bit about yes, keep going with the communication of, so you made the circle, like, what does it say? Bring us through
essentially like see at the bottom represents like the initial thought, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it pops, which is the top.
And
right,
so where you top when you find that's the one you decide to say, so you just
don't say, well, in this particular, when I made it, it was actually that it popped and it never got said.
Okay, wow.
That was what it meant. And so, because for me at the time, I was really trying to, I actually feel a lot of relief when I do not speak, when I have a lot of urge to speak. Like, it actually is a complete visceral sensation, like, good job, you let it go. You didn't have to say it.
So it's a little, so this is a little visual celebration of like releasing, of letting go, of not having attachment.
Oh, yeah.
That so you can watch it and you're like, but I really want to talk, but I really want to talk, but I really want to.
And then it's like a balloon, and it's gone.
Love it.
And then you don't have to deal with it anymore because you actually were never meant. You don't have, so yeah, it's a celebration of not speaking. That's what, so that thought, it's the thought popping and not into reality. That's what the painting is about.
We are going to use this in our silent retreat. We're going to use this as a tool.
She's a gem. Yeah, she's a gem for that. And I think what's so funny to me, Lonnie, is like, it's so obvious what it is because it's my symbology. So I love that you asked the questions because it's wicked funny to me that this is real. Like, every single one of these images are like visceral, energetic reactions to things created into symbolism, and they came fast and heavy, and they were assimilated from anything that would touch my soul during the time that those things were being made. So I can't even remember what thing influenced that painting at this moment. I don't have a recollection of the thing, but I'm sure something influenced it, right?
Yeah.
That's where I got pop from.
I have an emotional memory, but I can't think of the specifics. Like, I seem to remember like talking to you, like, after you conceived this one, and you kind of, you had, I don't know if this is true, but I'm coming up with some kind of like something in the back of my head where you were like, got my next painting, thought pop. And I was like, what? And so you were like, there was like a tiny moment of like apology, and then no apology, like it's thought pop. And I was like, okay, thought pop, because it's that's a different phrase than some of the other one, some of the other
Like
ones.
her
I'm
voice,
okay,
right? Like, yeah.
You are so fierce in your, like, this is what it's called. This is what it is. And I think it was born from like maybe this may have been an event-based or, a moment, something. You're like, I need a tool to help remind myself not to say everything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think I'm sure you're saying that, Lonnie, I believe that I probably read some kind of nudge around it in an Anna Dea Judith book, probably Wheels of Life. And actually, I could look it up. We could look it up later later. But I think I probably could go right to the page because I probably drew it. I'm sorry. You guys talk amongst yourself. I will be right back. I just want to see for my own edification.
I like when she goes on her little field trips.
That's the full integration. There she goes.
I feel like, betcha there is a drawing of a thought pop. I could be wrong.
Christina's not talking to me.
You know what I'm doing, Lonnie? I'm going through all these cards because you got I'm like, how many other names of these cards are 2 words rather than 1 word? There's not that many. And you got me curious. And then the other thing I'm doing is paying attention to which colors are nourishment, because it changes day to day, like which chakras are calling to us and need nourishment or that are nourishing for us. And for some reason, this whole time, this keeps popping in and out of my consciousness to mention to people. It's fun when, we probably all do this, but when you wake up in the morning and what color do you want to wear? What color are you drawn to? What colors are you painting your walls at this time in your world?
Yes.
Just to pay attention to the corresponding chakra. And root is really calling to me, the red.
So there's no drawing in the book, but let's read. This is the page. I found where it's from. So there's a little quote prior to the section. So it says, I'm curious to know what would happen if art were suddenly seen for what it is, namely exact information of how to rearrange one's psyche in order to anticipate the next blow from our own extended faculties. The artist is always engaged in writing a detailed history of the future because he is the only person aware of the nature of the present. And then this is the text that goes underneath it. Art forms are generally more abstract than any other forms of communication. Leaving room for imagination, they invite participation of the most innovative components of our consciousness. Saying less, perhaps we can hear more. As we approach the more abstract planes of consciousness, it is only fitting that we turn our more abstract means of communication in order to embrace these planes. And then I have like superstar triple arrow this next section. The process of creation is a process of inner discovery. In creating a work of art, we open ourselves to the very mysterious mysteries of the universe. We become channels for spiritual information, learning a language more universal than the human tongue. So I think there might have been, of course, like there's so much underlining in this whole book, but, I think that there's so much about this idea of truly becoming a vessel of listening in every single component of our body. And that in it is gifts so far beyond what this little teeny thing tells stories about, like we're so much more than this much space in our body. And the throat chakra down, I can't remember, I think it was Kyle Cease was like, are you going to listen to this much of your body all the time when you got this much that's talking to you? You know what I mean? So I think this idea about, what we've discovered today around this card and the truth in the truth, if this is the section in our body that represents truth, our voice connected to our truth, this component of listening and listening to the full body, the thing below the throat chakra and giving it as much validation as we ask normal people, ask the rest, every day we're not talking. I want to be like, ask people on the street. Like if you just were going to ask them, what are they listening to? Most people would tell you the endless chatter in their heads, like, oh, my mind is always racing. I have all these chattering thoughts. So
There's the heart chakra is right there below the throat.
That's probably why like classical and jazz music, like it is without lyrics. So, it allows your own spirit to feel without language, right?
that's a gift of art.
Yeah. Thank you for reading that, Kate.
Yeah, well, thank you for listening and allowing me
Yes,
to take
good.
a trip. And I know I posted notes somewhere with the little thought pop. Like, it's so fun to have this gift of like this journey and process, and that you even are humoring this idea of engaging in this stuff further, because it is such a joy to be able to continue to play and acknowledge this stuff as a thing, that's a thing in the world, and I'm on a journey with it. There's no question. It's a ride, and like, I have no idea and every idea where it goes. So it's that unattached.
Oh, let me see your camper van so we know.
Camper
Oh,
van?
no.
Oh, I parked it already.
Any of them.
Lonnie, I parked it.
What about the other one?
I parked it back in the other room.
All of them? Oh, the whole family. Okay, yeah.
These are my
when you
camper
said-
vans, Christina.
When
Lonnie
we're
got
on a
me.
journey. I just want to bring the vans. I want the visual in the vans.
So if you're not on a screen and you're listening to this, Kate just left the room and came back with 4 what looked like VW vans from the 1960s. So they're about 6 inches long, and they're all different colors, and they're wildly creative and inspiring to view.
Lonnie
Oh,
gave
yeah.
them to me as a present.
And the doors even open. Yeah.
Well, we want to. That's how we're bringing our visualization into an epic trip. Christina, you're in one of the vans, by the way. So just, if you have not,
Yeah.
figured yourself.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. I hope this brought you some value. Again, if you feel inclined, let us know in the comments if anything resonated with you, or you can privately text or DM one of us, which is often how we get the messages, but we're always so grateful for any form of folks reaching out and letting us, know, is this resonating with you? What did you like? What was new? What are some awarenesses that you might draw out for yourself and or share with others so that it helps to kind of concretely sink in this information? I think that's the part for me that makes it really fun, is that, like Christina said, we could study Satya or truth our entire lives, right? So, this is itself a form of study. So enjoy the parts that resonate and let yourself go down some rabbit holes today if you feel so inclined.
Great.
Speak less, listen more.
Namaste.
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 Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at The Chatting Chakra Show and at www.katelemay.com. Check back weekly for new episodes where we are always celebrating enjoying the journey.